What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Early Look. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I, of course, am from the WiseTake Nation, which you can find on all those social media platforms listed above. Make sure you were following on every platform that you utilize to make sure you were updated on the latest and greatest surrounding the WiseTake Nation. Real quick, if you are new to the channel, welcome. Please subscribe, hit the notifications bell. You found the right place for DFS goodness. We do all kinds of free content right here and on our Twitch page, twitch.tv/WiseTake. If you ever come to the channel and you don't see the expected content Monday through Friday for NBA DFS, and you get suspicious that maybe YouTube suspended us only because they've been doing it to a variety of DFS YouTubers, then that's why it's important that you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all that shit, so we can make sure you know where we are. We can make sure that you are informed and you know where to get the content. So again, if you're new, subscribe, hit notifications bell. Welcome. We do these shows Monday through Friday. This is the early look. We also do the our flagship show is the NBA Wise stream, which we do 2 hours prior to lock. Today's show will be at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. First hour, as always, will be a game-by-game breakdown like this. Myself, after we've kind of got some information, we'll take a look at the projections again, see what's changed. And then, of course, in hour two, we bring on Paulie D. Occasionally bring on a guest as well, talk some game theory, try to answer some questions, but more importantly, try to keep you guys informed to make sure that you have all the information you need leading up to lock. So make sure you check that out, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, Monday through Friday. And guys, it really helps with the likes, man. I can't, man. A lot of you guys be doing it. I appreciate it, but we need more. We need likes. The views that we're getting lately compared to the likes we're getting doesn't exactly match up. So it helps us out, allows us to continue to keep doing the dirty here. So if you guys could hit that like button, really appreciate it. Really helps us out. So yesterday we had the Minnesota chalk. A lot of the guys did good except for Culver, who was the most popular. That was obviously it was not good. I had way too much of him, which was kind of a cop-out, I guess. I mean, but Josh Okogie did well. McLaughlin did really well. Cat sucked. You know, what was interesting about that situation was, like, they didn't have a true point guard, right? You got McLaughlin, who's a two-way player. Jared Culver, who just doesn't look like a point guard. And neither of them were able to get Cat the ball. So I think in the second half, he went the entire third quarter. I don't even think he touched the ball. And on top of that, it was funny to watch them on defense because John Collins was just torching them. Collins I think he only finished at like 5.6x for fantasy value, but he was just, in real basketball, he was slicing them up. Their pick and roll was just lethal last night. It looked so easy. It just, every time Trae Young pick and roll, either he shoots a three or he passes it to Collins, and it was just a slam home. And that Naz Reid couldn't stay on the court. It was wild. But yeah, it was an interesting slate. The Jokic thing, I mean the Denver thing, you know, just to point out, so in the NBA, because of the grueling schedule, there's like a few games that these coaches circle, and they consider them scheduled losses. And the reason is because they're playing their fourth game in 6 nights, or if you're in Denver's case, your fifth game in 6 nights, or sixth game in 8 nights, whatever. And that was the situation. So, like, coaches go into those kind of expecting to lose. They don't try to lose, but they kind of go in expecting. You'll see players, or you'll see coaches decide to just rest their players. It's not worth trying to push a guy who may be hurt. And we saw that last night be the case with Barton and Jeremy Grant. If this was a playoff game and they had nobody else, they probably would have played. But I think last night Denver was just kind of like, hey, we're going to try our best, but this is a situation where if we lose, you know, according to the schedule, we should have anyway, especially being that it was a road game in Utah. So we saw Utah lose outright at home to Houston, who was on a 4-6 back-to-back with travel, and they didn't have Capella, Harden, or Westbrook. Eric Gordon just sliced them up. And then last night we just saw them lose again at home to Denver, who had 7 players were on a back end of a back-to-back. They were missing one of their top scorers in Will Barton. They were missing like their only other true power forward left, Jeremy Grant. I guess Michael Porter Jr. I mean, they were just all hurt. That's my point. And Millsap, they're all hurt. And 7 players, one of which I'm sure nobody really ever heard of. And they won in Utah. So it was just crazy to me. I mean, and Denver's was more impressive because not only do they only have 7 players yesterday, but they were playing like their 6th game in 8 nights, or 5th game in 7 nights. It was something crazy. They were in a crazy, ridiculous stretch. And they traveled into Utah, which is a tough place to play. So I don't know whether to pat Denver on the back, pat Houston on the back. Well, I mean, they do deserve that. It was impressive regardless. But more importantly for the Utah, it's like, man, a lot of people, is Utah good or not? Does anybody know if Utah is actually good or not? Because I tend to believe they are not that good and that they do have a home field advantage. And it's very tough for teams to play there. But at the same time, we've seen flashes that they are good. We've seen them in situations like when they're on and they do look good. But I don't know. I'm curious. I'd like to hear what you guys think. Drop it in the chat. I'm just curious. Do you guys think Utah is actually considered I'm not saying do you think they're going to win the champion. I'm not talking about no championship team. I'm just saying do you think they're actually a good team at all? I'm curious. As far as the core yesterday, in my core plays article, little review action, I had Jimmy Butler in there, which sucked because I did have a lot of Jimmy Butler and he eventually got hurt. But I also had a lot of Derrick Jones Jr., who was one of the top plays on the slate. So that helped me out a little bit. I didn't react enough to the Denver situation. I let the schedule, and I'm a big schedule person. You guys will see that. Like that's how I bet based off the NBA schedule. And in DFS, in the back of my mind as I do them, I typically will, move around, stuff like that. So, quick shout out to our boy in the YouTube chat, Pascal, says, thank you guys for the Jones Jr. Late Night Hammer. Saved my day. Holla. No, I didn't. Shark Killer G. I didn't because, you know why I didn't? You know why I didn't place that bet on Utah? It was because of the Houston situation. I saw Houston do it, and I was just like, man, any team but Utah. I'm not doing it. Like I said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But I'm telling you, bro, you follow the schedule, and more times than not, you could ask the dudes subscribe. Like, more times than not, the schedule, when it comes to betting, the schedule will work out. There are certain teams, and Utah proved to be one of them when they lost to Houston. When they lost to Houston that day, that really opened my eyes, and I was like, shit, you can't trust these guys for shit. It's kind of the same thing with, what's it called? It's kind of the same thing with, there's certain teams you just, you got to be careful with. Oops. Oh, shit. Try to do two things at once, man. My bad, Shark. I didn't even mean to get rid of your message, bro. You said shit happens. That's no big deal. I didn't mean to do all that. My bad. Anyway. But yeah, man, it's just there are certain teams where it's just like they'll just do the weirdest thing in the weirdest spot. I mean, a lot of times I'll use the schedule in conjunction with the public. I would rather be on Vegas' side most of the time. But the NBA is wild, man. I mean, I'll tell you, it's crazy. It really was crazy that the Denver was able to do that with 7 players. So, but again, going back to it, I think like the big thing, the biggest mistake from last night, I had a lot of Detroit players. I had 100% Reggie Jackson. He did awesome. Had a lot of Detroit. Had like 30% Drummond, which initially I had more. Then we got the Minnesota situation. I had a lot of Cat. What I should have then done when we got the Denver news, it was late. So on FanDuel, you were kind of handcuffed. But on DraftKings with late swap, once we saw that Barton and Grant were not in the starting lineup, we probably should have loaded up on Denver. And I know some of the sharper players did do that. I saw Jokic as high as like 40, 50, 60% owned by some of the sharper players out there. And guys like Torrey Craig and some of the other ones. So that was the move, right? Thin teams are the cheat code. We were talking all day. In both the shows yesterday, we were talking about there's multiple thin teams. It's a matter of finding the team that's the thinnest. Now, we didn't have the Barton Grant news going into it. At the time, I was under the impression that Grant would play and Barton would sit because one got downgraded, one got upgraded. So I figured, okay, so apparently Barton's hurt, and that's why they're going to consider playing Grant. Ultimately, that's not what happened. They both sat out. So once that was the situation, and we knew that Denver had, and some of y'all got lives and shit, y'all couldn't keep track. But once you saw that Denver was going to have 7 active players, that should have been the cue to just load up on as many Denver guys as you could. And not all of them did well. That guy nobody heard of didn't do shit. He got like 10 DraftKings points. PJ Dozier finished with 18 something, which was still over 6x at his price. So Jamal Murray balled out at very low ownership. Torrey Craig was like 3,300 worth for 25. Was a lot better than Jared Culver, right? Sorry ass. But still, Derrick Jones Jr., Dude is a beast. He had the game of his life last night. I don't know. The rebounds and the dunks and all that shit, like that's what he does regularly. But he had the game of his life yesterday. I mean, he couldn't miss. He was making threes, everything, especially when Butler went out. Shit just went wild. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get into the game by game. Real quick, for those of you subscribed to WiseTake.com with an NBA membership, whether it's a day pass, whatever, I'm going to make a post over there after this show ends. Behind the paywall, we're going to do an MME workshop kind of thing, like a strategy session. It'll be available to anybody subscribed to WiseTake.com. We just go over some of the MME stuff, some strategies, and I want you guys to kind of understand projections a little bit better and understand how they work so that you can put your own thought into them and tweak them to make them more like your own and shit. So we're going to do something like that. I'll show some of the process. I know a lot of you need refreshers on how to upload CSVs and all that, so we'll do all that. That's going to be after this show. It'll be for the WiseTake subscribers at WiseTake.com. Anybody who has access with a WiseTake and membership. All right. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get in with this game by game. So it's currently, 10:42 in the morning, so we're waiting on some news. The trade deadline doesn't end until 3. A lot of the teams on this slate have been in talks. I'm sure almost every team has been in talks in some degree. People at least listen, have conversations, see what's open. We're going to start things off with the Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks. My New York Knicks. Obviously, the Knicks have been a topic of conversation. They fired their team president. Nobody really knows what the hell they plan on doing. That's just Knick life right there. That's just how the Knicks do it. We're going to start with the Orlando side. We have a 205.5 total, which is by far the lowest on the slate. By far. I mean, we got some good games today, right? We got Houston visiting the Lakers. We've got the Spurs visiting Portland. We've got New Orleans visiting the Bulls. The next lowest total is the Philly-Milwaukee game, and it's at 227. And again, I said this Knicks game has a 205.5 total. On the Orlando side, there wasn't a ton that stood out to me too much. Fournier's price is really low, but there's a lot of good plays, so he's kind of fitting like a mid-tier balance build. I'm fine with him. On both sides, he projects really well. Michael Carter-Williams, really interesting. He balled out last night, and we don't have a lot of value on the slate. You'll see like some of the value that as of right now we're looking at is not like comfortable. It's not guys that have solidified minutes or big minutes at all even. But Michael Carter-Williams could be an interesting pivot. I get the feeling as of now, things may open, but as of now I get the feeling that like Kobe White and some of the Bulls may be the chalkier value. MCW, Michael Carter-Williams, remains, as he is pretty much every day, a lower owned pivot option. He balled out yesterday. It's a back-to-back for Orlando. The minutes, again, kind of like Kobe White, kind of hard to project. Anywhere from 18 to 22, 23. It's tough. Nikola Vucevic, I think is fine. 8,200 is a low price. He didn't do well against Boston yesterday. We've seen the Knicks get blown up by centers from time to time. None of their true centers, I would say, are great at covering the perimeter. So I think it's an interesting spot for Vooch. Again, the game is just not great. Aaron Gordon was impressive yesterday. I didn't like the matchup for him, but he did ball out. His usage rate was massive. Obviously, we don't have him projected too well. Let me see how many minutes. See if that's a hard 34 or what. I've got him at a true 34. So if he grows on us or if we get any kind of news, maybe we'll raise him a little bit, half a minute. But I don't see us raising him all that much minutes-wise. So we'll see this. We're just going to have to see how he ranks to the other guys at his position throughout this. Markelle Fultz, the usage rate yesterday was alarming. It was like 10. Now, the ownership's going to be really low. It's just unexciting. This game in general is kind of unexciting. I think Fournier, Michael Carter-Williams, and Vooch are the main ones that I think, as of right now, we may get to, and we may not, because there are other good plays on the slate, and we have a lot of studs. So, obviously, if there's some kind of injury or trade, we'll have more interest into this situation, but it is a back-to-back. Orlando is one of the slowest teams out there. Kind of a letdown spot situation. Well, not really, I guess. They played Boston yesterday. It was a tough game. It should be a much softer matchup for him, but we'll have to see what goes on. But as of right now, I'm not terribly interested in the rest. Terrence Ross on FanDuel at 45 is kind of interesting. At 5K on DraftKings, I'm not saying he can't hit a 6X on that, but obviously we know Ross is very scoring dependent. But he has been playing the minutes, so it's not like out of the realm. On to the Knicks side. Boom. So Marcus Morris and Randall have played just big minutes. Now, the Cleveland game was an overtime game, so just consider that if you're looking at their game logs or whatever. Pull this up real quick. Yeah, so the Cleveland was their last game. Randall, for instance, played 38 minutes, which is weird. You would have thought he would have seen more in an overtime game because he's been playing 35, 36, 37, so that was actually kind of strange. But obviously one of the usage leaders. If Marcus Morris were to get traded, he would be even more appealing. We'd have to raise his minutes because we would expect his usage to go up dramatically without Marcus Morris. We've seen Marcus Morris miss a game, and Randall's usage was just phenomenal. So we'll have to be ready for that situation. R.J. Barrett is questionable. He could return today. I would imagine even if he did, it'd be on some sort of limit. But if he plays, that could affect Elf to a degree. It could take away a minute or two from him. His price is elevated. This is a revenge spot for Elf. For those of you who remember before New Orleans, he was on Orlando for a while when he had the funky hair. Remember everybody was talking about he couldn't shoot because of his hair? I don't think it was his hair. That's one that. I mean, he was hitting his hair with the free throws, but he still can't really shoot. So maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. But the free throw thing was definitely weird. I mean, I'm not getting on Elf. I love Elf. I actually like Elf. I was glad when he came to the Knicks. I'm an Elf fan. But for fantasy purposes, not really for actual basketball purposes. But still, nonetheless, his price is elevated. If R.J. Barrett were to miss and Marcus Morris were to miss, then I'd be kind of interested because then I think that he does a lot more facilitating. Marcus Morris is going to shoot a lot of threes. Maybe Elf shoots a little bit more. And obviously, if Morris were to get ruled out, it would open up some sort of value. Now, we have some things to monitor. Mitchell Robinson's probable, but a lot of these Knicks are sick. I think Reggie Bullock is sick. What's his name? Damian Dotson is sick. So we don't even know if all these guys are going to play. So when we get some of this news, we're going to have to factor things in. R.J. Barrett, that's 27 minutes we have right there. That would have to go somewhere. We've got Dotson. If he doesn't play, that's 13 minutes we have. We have to go somewhere. So this is a situation worth monitoring. I will say this about Elf. He's always low owned. At this price, he will definitely be low owned. No doubt. So I'll say that. So again, the Knicks, we're waiting for news. Luckily, it's the first game. We should get a lot of that news, and then we can make some decisions. But I don't see myself loving too much from this game. We have so many good games on the slate. This one has by far the lowest total. Going to be at the slowest pace. Holla if you hear me. Let's go. Real quick, if you are joining us. Yeah, Aaron Gordon, man, the projection is not, it's not showing that great for us, but we may have to give him a little boost because the price is low. We'll see how he ranks. You know what I mean? We'll just have to see how he ranks relative to the other players of that position. But I don't mind him. His usage yesterday was impressive against Boston. It was impressive. Very high usage rate. That's a pretty good lineup, Kyle. You said Reggie Jackson, Josh Okogie, Derrick Jones Jr., Maxi Kleber, Jokic, Culver, Porzingis, and Towns. Yeah, Towns and Culver, man. Ruining them. Please hit the like button, guys. If you're joining us, welcome. Please hit that like button. Let's do it. Let's get it. Let's roll. All right, next game. We've got the Philadelphia 76ers and Milwaukee Bucks. Philly's also been linked to trades. Obviously, last night they acquired... Glenn Robinson III and Alec Burks, which I think that's an upgrade as far as those in-between players. When Josh Richardson comes back, they're not really going to need all those guys. But Alec Burks off the bench sounds reasonable. Glenn Robinson will shoot. That's pretty much all he does, but he'll do it. So looking here, they didn't give up any players. That's what was important. They did it for draft picks. But anyway, we've got a 227 total, second lowest on the slate, but obviously a lot higher than 205.5. The Bucks opened up as 9-point favorites. It's down to 8.5 as of now. Philly, I don't know why, but they just decided to price Philly extremely soft. Well, I think I do know why. I think it's because Philly is terrible on the road. Philly is one of the worst road teams you could imagine. One of the best home teams this year. One of the worst road teams. So I'm assuming that's why they're playing Milwaukee, who looks pretty damn good. I guess that's why they've gotten blown out, right? I'm pretty sure they've gotten blown out a lot on the road, like lately. I know Boston beat them up, right? So Miami beat the shit out of them, 106-137. They lost 3 in a row on the road. They're bad, I'm telling you. They lost to Atlanta by 10 on the road. Boston beat them 116-95. Miami beat them 106-137. They're just not good on the road. That's it. With that said, DraftKings is daring you to play these guys. Tobias Harris, 6'2" and 6'6". That's just crazy cheap. Al Horford, even. I'm not playing. Al Horford's not. He's the least. He's the one I'm interested in the least. But his price has gotten crazy low. I've heard rumors that Horford's kind of a problem child over there in Philly. I heard he's not really getting along with the rest of the team, or maybe the teammates in general aren't getting along that well. I don't know. I mean, you got some personalities, but anyway, his price is low. Ben Simmons and Embiid, though. I mean, those guys are way too. It's not even fair. We got Embiid projected for 33 minutes, which, if this game were to stay close, I think Embiid's playing more like 34, 35. And his price is 9-1 and 9K. It's just, I don't understand. Same thing with Simmons. Like, this is a guy that's, I understand he hasn't played that well over the last couple games. But first of all, he just had a good game against Atlanta in a fast-paced environment like this. Second of all, he's playing like 38 minutes a game. 38 to 40. Like, 38 is, I think, a fair projection, but we could have projected him for 39 and justified it, minutes-wise. So, be prepared as of now, unless things change, to fight off Philly if you don't want him. And if you want him, then you're good, because it looks like you should get a decent amount of him if you're using a projection system, or our projections anyway. But yeah, all three of them, Tobias, Embiid, and Simmons, all look phenomenal. They all look underpriced for the role. Keep in mind, Josh Richardson is still out, so those guys still get somewhat of a usage bump. And now, before the guys get priced when there's an injury. In this situation, is the opposite happened. They lowered their price because of how bad they played. And Tobias has been bad. He's been disappointing. 20 and 15 DraftKings points in his last 2 games. But obviously, this is a guy that goes for 36 to 40 DraftKings points on a regular. So Philly is just crazy cheap. As of right now, I'm gonna play a lot of these guys. It may hurt, but if we get stronger value, that'll help me reach the higher studs. But if I can't get that, if we don't get the value and time, if we don't get enough value that we feel comfortable with, then we're going to end up playing a lot of these guys, because they're all softly priced and you don't need a ton of value to get them in. They're all somewhat cheap. You got me? You feel me? On the Milwaukee side, obviously these guys are good. Burlow's played big minutes lately. It doesn't mean he's going to continue to get them. We know Milwaukee's going to do things situationally as they do. His brother, I believe, is a better defender than he is. I'm not sure, but assuming he gets, say, 31.5, I think that's what we have him for. He's got a decent projection for his price. Bledsoe and Middleton, I think, are both in play for tournaments. This is definitely a game stackable game. Giannis is one of the studs. Maybe Giannis is a little lower owned. We'll see. I guess it depends on Westbrook's status. If Westbrook is out, I think Harden will be the main, obviously will be the chalk stud again. We'll have that situation. And that game's late night hammer. I wonder if we're going to have that news. We may, but we'll see. But it's the main three. Bledsoe, Middleton's probably my favorite. Number one, the spot is good for him. Number two, he's just been awesome lately. And he's been most likely to play 33. But I am okay with Bledsoe. I know he was a little slow going last time. He almost got there against New Orleans, but started off the game real slow. George Hill is expected to be back, so maybe that cuts into the minutes of Bledsoe a little bit. I think maybe that cuts into the minutes of DiVincenzo, just by a couple. But he's not on the injury report. He's back. He's a flyer value play, I guess. But really, man, it's Middleton is probably my favorite of the three. I'm good with this for game stacks. Bledsoe, Middleton, Giannis. I don't mind Brolo. We do have a lot of interesting centers, though. So I don't depending on how you get there at your center spot. But yeah, game stackable game. Lowest total on the slate, but again, it's 227. It's not anything crazy. It's still pretty high. And Philly's just underpriced. Philly's just way underpriced. Going on to Nolans. The Nolans Pelicans visiting the Chicago Bulls. We have a 231 total. This is tied for the second highest. It opened up at 231.5, so it was the second highest, but it went down to 231. New Orleans opened up -3.5. They're up to -4.5, and they are playing the Bulls. Play the Bulls. Let's do it. We will start off with the road team as always, which is New Orleans. We've got Derek Favors, man. So Favors did play minutes. This is a really good matchup for bigs traditionally, and I think Gafford has defended the bigs a little bit better, but he seems to be on some kind of limitation. He's questionable today anyway, so I still think we're a go. But on the topic of Favors, let's talk about this guy for a second. So in that last game against Milwaukee, Favors did play 25 minutes. He had a 6.1% usage rate. He only took 3 shots, Had 5 boards, 2 assists, a turnover, a block, and 2 fouls. So he just was not active. And that's not the only thing. Against Memphis, we saw a similar thing. He played 20 minutes against Memphis with a 9.3 usage rate. He's had a 16.9, a 17, like in between. He's got some upside. But at this point, I don't know. I think I may feel more comfortable playing Brolo over him at this point. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's just been disappointing. On FanDuel, power forward, you probably end up with a little more of him at this method. So we may have to lower him by a minute, depending on what we decide how we feel about him. But the matchup is good. I'm just concerned on the usage. I'm concerned that he's fallen so down the totem pole that he may be out of play. But we know he's got upside. We've seen this dude ball. I mean, the last time he played Milwaukee before that last game, obviously Zion was not there. But he went for like 40 DraftKings points. To see him with a 6% usage rate against the donut. But in all reality, though, you need to approach it somewhat with a short-term memory, and we probably shouldn't let that affect the fact that he is cheap. It's just a matter of minutes. What do we genuinely think he's going to play? Maybe 25 is too aggressive. Maybe more like 24.5 would be a more fair projection. Drew Holiday coming off a terrible game. He's extremely cheap, though, and it sounds like the Pelicans want to keep him. So I guess they won't move him. Lonzo Ball's playing a ton of minutes. Mid-tier. Paulie was right. Shout out to him. He said Lonzo would lead the team in threes. Me and Stevie said if that was the case, they were going to be in trouble. And that was the case all the way around, right? Like, he did take a lot of threes. He sucked, did not hit a lot of threes. And then New Orleans got beat up a little bit. So, funny when things like that work out. But Ball's playing big minutes. 36 might even be too little for the amount of minutes he's actually playing. Brandon Ingram on DraftKings. On FanDuel at 82, probably not as strong. On DraftKings at 7.6, he still projects to be one of the top plays on the slate. Ingram's been a little bit more, I mean, he's a scorer. That's what he does. The problem with guys like this is they're going to have those days where they can't shoot. I'm not in the business of trying to guess when that's going to be, so as of right now, I plan on getting a healthy exposure to him against Chicago. He's gone for 49 and 48 DraftKings points in his last 2 games, which would still be great at his price now. Last time he saw Chicago was January 8th. They were home. He played 38 minutes. Again, Zion was not here. But he went for 61 DraftKings points that day. So he was 8-8. So I still think there's some value left there in Ingram now that he's below the 8K range. But on FanDuel, like I said, doesn't really apply. Zion's very interesting because we've seen him play some center as well. And this is, we mentioned, a really good matchup for center. So if you're not really into the favors thing, then maybe you want to consider Zion. Now, we've got an aggressive projection for him. He's never played 34 minutes before, but I wanted to reflect the spot. I really, really think this is a really good spot for him against Chicago. So I know the price, $7,500 on Powerful on FanDuel, $77 on DraftKings, but I think he's an interesting tournament play. So I know he's not popping as much as some of the other players. And when I was running through some crunches earlier, he wasn't coming up a ton, but I may be a little creative and see what I can figure out there. Because there's also scenarios where Ingram gets into foul trouble, which I think would help Zion. Like, if we ever get a day where Ingram is ruled out, I would expect Zion to really, really kick that shit up. But, yeah, definitely an interesting game. Like I said, second highest total on the slate. It's tied for the second highest total on the slate. On the Bulls side, this is where a lot of the value looked better. Chandler Hutchison, I think, was on pace. Chicago did get blown out against Toronto. He looked like he was closing. He got 29 minutes, and the last quarter of the game was complete. Like the last quarter of the fourth quarter was complete garbage time. So maybe he, in a competitive game, he might have played more, and he was obviously playing well. We know that Denzel Valentine is out. Obviously, Lauri Markkanen, Otto Porter, Wendell Carter. As of right now, we have Gafford out, so maybe he won't play. Chris Dunn, we know, is recently out, so they're missing a lot of bodies too. Kobe White played in garbage time. Like he got his last couple of minutes. He wasn't looking like he was going to get a ton, but this is New Orleans, a guard-heavy team, so maybe he does get run. As of right now, he's an interesting value play. It's not strong because Hutchison to me is somewhat strong. I don't love that the price is going up, obviously, but to me, I'm assuming he's going to start, and I'm assuming he's going to get 30-some minutes. Kobe White, I can't say. Number one, we know he's not going to start. Oh, well, maybe he will. I shouldn't say we know. NBA coaches like to do weird shit all the time. But he usually comes off the bench. And I didn't like the fact that when he came in, it was garbage time. Like, he wasn't in the regular rotation. He came in with the scrubs. And then they're going to put him in that he's young. So he would have been. I didn't like the fact he didn't close that day. But they were playing Toronto. maybe this will be different against New Orleans. But obviously, he's a guy that's going to take a lot of threes. When he is on the court, he's going to give it. He's going to try. He's going to go for it. He's going to take double-digit shot attempts. If we're lucky, they'll go in. If we're not, then, fuck. But Chandler Hutchison, I do think, is a strong play. Luke Cornett is projecting well. I'm a little nervous about that one for obvious reasons, but assuming Gafford is out, we'll have to check the status on that later. Assuming he is out, between him and Felicio, I would think they would want Cornett in there. I don't know. Maybe not. But you would think Cornett would at least get 20-something minutes, and we don't have a lot of value. He's power forward eligible on DraftKings, power forward on FanDuel, kind of interesting. Thaddeus Young, kind of interesting, but doesn't do a whole ton for us at this point or where he's priced. Going to have his hands full, too, with Zion. Zach LaVine, though. I expect people to play him, and for good reason. Pace-up spot here. He's at home against New Orleans. They've had some time off. They're missing guys. We know LaVine's usage is just massive. So I think Hutchison, Kobe White, and LaVine are the main targets here for now that we're looking at. And again, with Kobe White, a little bit more of a risk. Hutchison, I kind of feel, first of all, he's played well. Second of all, it does look like they're willing to give him minutes. And remember, Ryan Arcidiacono and Shaq Harrison could get some run. I don't know how much. Valentine wasn't playing a whole ton, but I would expect Harrison to maybe take Valentine's role. And Arcidiacono to maybe take some of Chris Dunn. Satoransky, I did not mention him. His price has gone up. He was disappointing last time out, but with Dunn out, we expect him to play a lot of point guard. So the minute projection may even be light for what it is because the last game blew out. We can't really make a judgment. Let's go on to the next one. We've got the San Antonio Spurs visiting the Portland Trailblazers. Again, 231 total. Portland, 3.5-point favorites at home. They killed me against Denver. That was just a fish move on my part. But for sure to bet them against Denver. My pops told me to. He was like, man, there's certain teams I don't like to do it, and Denver's one of them. And I was like, man, it was a schedule set. Everything looked great. He was right. He was 100% right. But I mean, hey, we're talking about it. Denver apparently was just red fucking hot because they just went into Utah the next day on a back-to-back with 7 people and just did the dirty. So, shit. All right, then shit. All right, what we got? Yeah, I went over that already. San Antonio Spurs, great spot for LaMarcus Aldridge, great price for LaMarcus Aldridge. Narrative, for those of you that like narrative, obviously this is the team he spent a lot of years with. I like LMA today. He's going to be popular. He was 6'2" the other day. It was too good to be true. 6'5" and 6'6" still feels that way, but against Portland, a team that's not very good defensively, I would imagine that he actually does get some usage. He's had a day off. That was a back-to-back that last game out. And the matchup was worse to me against the Lakers. Just a really big team. Portland does have Whiteside. Whiteside, number one, not a very good actual defender. Just because you can block shots, I always say, doesn't make you a great defender. And number two, he's the only big guy they got. DeJounte Murray, always interesting. DeMar DeRozan, certainly in play. Well, his price is under $8K. I'm somewhat interested. But LMA is the main one here. You want to take a shot on Patty Mills for value on a smaller slate, I'm fine with it. Patty Mills probably is a pretty strong pivot because outside of that last game, he's played really well lately. So Patty Mills probably not getting enough. I'll at least look into him more before the next show to see if we want to really consider him a little bit more. Because where he's projecting now, we're not really going to get any. And that could be a mistake because we don't really trust the other value. He's priced the same as some of the other plays, like Kobe White, for instance, and he's played well. So we'll see. We'll revisit that. But LMA for sure. Portland side. So Whiteside, phenomenal spot. Really good price on DraftKings at $8K. Still not a bad price on FanDuel because of the blocks, how many points you get for blocks and shit. I love Whiteside today. Hopefully, YouTube is not flagging me in the moment for saying Whiteside. I know if you write Whiteside's name in the chat, they'll flag you thinking you're being racist. But I love Hassan Whiteside, and I'm going back to Dame. I know Paulie will. Dame's my favorite stud as of now. It's a really good spot against San Antonio. I think San Antonio is competitive enough to keep this game to keep this game close. And so I'm interested. Whiteside and Dame are my favorites. I'm cool with some Ariza for value. I think his minutes are going to be there as long as the game's competitive. I'm okay with Melo. Don't like him as much, but I'm okay with him, obviously. But Whiteside, Lillard, I'm good with McCollum at 6,700. I think it's fair. I like a lot of Portland today. I like this game in general with LMA on the other side. So one thing I'll say about Dame, though, he went into Denver. A lot of people struggle when they go into Denver. It's not just Dame. It's not just a lot of people. The altitude thing is real. And to Denver's credit, like when they're healthy, they're a good defensive team. So they are defensive minded to a degree. Their defense is definitely lacking with all these injuries, but they are defensive minded. So not making excuses, but what I liked about Dame was the usage was still there. His usage rate has been in the 30s, and it was still in the 30s. So that tells me he is still going to be like this aggressive side of him. It's just not over yet because it went pretty terrible, right? He shot 1 for 6 from 3, 8 for 23 from the field. Only got 30 minutes because the game was never close. Still had a 36% usage rate. So I'm still with it, man. If he goes for 70, 80, like you're looking at 7, 8x on a 10K price, I'm still cool with it. I'm still gonna be playing some Dame. And like I said, I'm Whiteside be my second favorite. Then McCollum, Ariza, Anthony. I'm cool with it. I'm cool with all of them. Cool with all of them. You know. Hawks kidding the AC, running it all. I feel you. Kyle says any Bobby Portis. At the moment, I don't have any plans of it. But again, like the trade deadline's not until 3, so we have to wait and see where things end up. We could end up with a situation where Randall or Morris is traded, and then what? Then it's Bobby Portis all day. So we'll have to wait and see. As of right now, though, on a smaller slate for value, it's fine. It's just hard to commit to a guy that is not going to play a ton of minutes. But we'll see. We'll see how things shape up. If you're just joining us, welcome. Please hit that like button, guys. Really helps us out. Allows us to do the dirty. We got one game left, and it is the Rockets and the Lakers. Who's the Houston on the road? We've got a 235.5 total. It's the highest, but only by 4.5 points. It did rise, though, 234 up to 235.5. The Lakers opened up a 7-point favorites at home. They're up to 7.5. As of right now, Westbrook is questionable. He missed the last game. We don't know what his status is. It's an actual injury. It's like a thumb sprain or something. So there is a possibility he sits. If he sits, we'll obviously raise Harden's projection a little bit. He's 12-4 on DraftKings. Holla. And if he's ruled out before lock, I do think this may turn into that because I think people will try to... Here's the difference. The difference is this time if Westbrook's out, all the other Rockets are now priced up. On FanDuel, not as much, right? Eric Gordon at 4.8, you'll take that all day if Westbrook's out. PJ Tucker at 4.9, if you wanted to do it, you still can. They don't have a center. We'll talk about that. They're trying to get one supposedly, so I guess a trade could be made here. But I heard they are trying to get a center. I heard that they're trying to get. They were talking to 2 teams from the Eastern Conference. Supposedly one of them may have been Tristan Thompson. I don't know. We'll believe it when we see it. If everybody's healthy, it's hard to want to play Harden at that price. But if everybody's healthy, then Harden's ownership will be ridiculously low. So use that for what it is. I just don't know if there's enough value for you to comfortably get him unless Westbrook is out. And even if Westbrook is out, like I said, like McLemore was 3,400. Now he's 45. I mean, it's still playable. Austin Rivers, same thing. They're all still playable, but they're not as easy, I guess. The new house is now 6K on DraftKings, 54 on FanDuel. Eric Gordon's still reachable, but he sucked terribly last time, but you get my drift. If they're in, then obviously Westbrook, you're getting a bargain on because they're both playing like 40, 41 minutes apiece. And Westbrook had, in the last game, Harden outplayed him. Westbrook's been playing really well too. So obviously he would be interesting. I'd still like Dame over him though, for sure. After that, I mean, again, if there's injuries, we'll revisit and talk about it. I don't see myself paying 6.2 for PJ Tucker. I don't see myself paying 4.9 for PJ Tucker, especially not against this team with how big they are. But again, if Westbrook is out, Harden, we'll have to revisit. Eric Gordon becomes interesting. The new house is debatable because of how many minutes he's actually gotten in this situation. He's playing a lot of minutes. And then, of course, Rivers and McLemore would be 2 more value plays that you would consider. But again, their prices are a little more elevated. On the Lakers side of the ball, we've got... Oh, so you know what? They actually added... I forgot about Robert Covington. They added Covington and Bell to the pool. I'm glad. I just got a notification. So initially, the reason that they're not in the projections is because they were not in the player pool. But I just got an email from DraftKings telling us that the following players have been added to the player pool. The player pools for tonight's main and late slates. And it's letting us know Robert Covington and Jordan Bell were added. So we'll have them incorporated into these projections later. Again, going to be hard to project, though, because we have no idea what their role is going to be. I would imagine that, I'm not going to like House, that's going to ruin House, I think, because Covington's going to take his role, I would imagine, right out the gate. Even if they bring him off the bench, the plan ultimately is to get Covington more time. So House is probably ruined, like with that. We'll have to come back in here, and that's going to affect a lot of things. It's the last game going, so we may not know what the starting lineup looks like. It's going to make things interesting. It's going to make things interesting. Wow. All right. And Jordan Bell. That's like the closest thing to a center they have. Do they play him today against these Giants, the Lakers? Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, Anthony Davis. Speaking of the Lakers. So, I mean, the way things are now, whether Jordan Bell, I was just kidding about Jordan Bell, whether he plays or not, I don't see how they're going to stop Anthony Davis. We saw what Porzingis was just able to shoot right over the top of them. PJ Tucker's a strong dude. Like he could play the post against bigs. That's fine. He's a big, strong, stocky pitbull guy, but he's 6'5". Anthony Davis is going to shoot right over him. He's got to be one of the top studs on the slate, at least as of now, based off matchup. It's just a matchup issue for Houston. And Nana says they're going to need Hartenstein against the Lakers. We think that. We think that's what they need. But they refuse to do it. Right? Like, I think he got a little bit of run recently. Hartenstein played 3 minutes against Charlotte in a game that was a blowout. 6 minutes against Utah. That's Rudy Gobert. 4 minutes against Denver. Right? They've played Portland. This is who they've played. They played Steven Adams, Karl-Anthony Towns, Jonas Valanciunas, Hassan Whiteside, Nikola Jokic, and Rudy Gobert. I'm not even Charlotte. I get it. Charlotte's not big. And Hartenstein's played four against Memphis, 1 against Portland, 4 against Denver, 6 against Utah. They don't seem to want to play him. And now that Bell's there, maybe they try. I mean, Bell is not a 5; he's a 4, but he's outside of Hartenstein, he's like the tallest dude. Maybe they have no choice. You're right. It's possible. I know. He's 7 foot. I know. I've got burned by him once, and I keep thinking he's gonna get in the game and burn me, and he hasn't. So, he's 7 foot. You would think they would need a guy like that, but I don't know. That's just not what they've been doing. In the meantime, LeBron James' ownership, I would imagine, is going to be somewhat low because I think most will play AD over him, and rightfully so. Kyle Kuzma has been in a lot of trade talks. I got him at 30 minutes, which is obviously somewhat aggressive, but they're playing Houston. This is a team that he's dominated throughout his career, Kuzma. I know his role's different. The minutes are different. He's not even a starter anymore, at least at the time being. But for tournaments on a small slate, I really don't mind it, especially on FanDuel at 4,500. Just because when you're playing Houston, you're going to need a lot of shots typically, right? Fast pace, shooting. So I think it could be an opportunity. Remember, the Lakers are being paced up here quite a bit. But Anthony Davis and LeBron are always the first two you're deciding. And I lean towards AD today, as I think most will. I agree. No, they can't stay small ball against the Lakers. I agree, but I've thought that about a lot of teams they've played. So we'll see. It's possible. I'm not saying that there's no way Hartenstein sees the court, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't, because clearly D'Antoni, I don't know, maybe this is fun to him. Maybe to him it's fun to just play a 6'5" dude against a big center and then laugh at him when he gets torched. I mean, listen, they played Porzingis, right? And Porzingis did exactly what I think AD is going to do. I'm just going to shoot over the top of you. I'm just going to shoot right over your head. You can't reach me. That's what I think is going to happen. But we'll see. Maybe they do finally have to put Hartenstein in. If the game blows out, they certainly will. That's going to do it for the early look show today. Appreciate those of you who hung out with us to talk about this. Hit that like button if you could. If you are subscribed to WiseTake.com. In about like 20, 30 minutes or so, I'll be doing a strategy session, a little workshop for MME, just going over some of the builds for today that our projections are giving us. Go over the projections, kind of explain to you guys how they work, etc. And review the upload process, the CSV process for those of you that need it. So if you're subscribed to WiseTake.com, you'll have access to that. Otherwise, I will see the rest of y'all for the Wise stream at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube, right here on Twitch, right here on Periscope, whatever you're watching on. We'll be back at about 5:30 to kick this thing off. Hopefully we have some more information. The trade deadline will be over by then. So that'll certainly help, for sure. But that's going to do it for us today. Appreciate those of you hanging with me. For myself, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.